Throughout his career, James Harden has built up a reputation as one of the most cutthroat and opportunistic players the NBA has ever produced. He's proven time and time again that he'll go to extreme lengths to get whatever he wants. Fan sentiment began to turn against Harden as far back as 2015, when he kicked Jordan in the groin after he was two-timed by MJ and Jones. The way he also handled his beef with Giannis Antetokounmpo rubbed people the wrong way. However, what established his reputation was how he handled his transfer from the Rockets and the Brooklyn Nets when they proved difficult. He showed up late to practice and out of shape, threw games, and went as far as bad-mouthing his team just to get the deal he wanted. Essentially, he ruined their seasons. With how his recent transfer controversy with the general manager of the 76ers is shaping up, Harden might lose for the first time in a long time. The controversy started when news broke of James Harden requesting a trade from the Philadelphia 76ers because the GM, Daryl Morey, reneged on an unofficial deal they settled on a year prior. According to Harden, he agreed to take a $12 million pay cut to his usual contract in exchange for a long-term contract in the offseason. His pay cut allowed the 76ers to onboard talents that allowed the team to push harder. When the dust settled, Harden should have been looking at a contract for $210 million straight into the offseason, but the call never came. This was after Harden already turned down a $161 million contract from Brooklyn and said no to 2 years for $110 million from the Rockets. The Rockets' new coach, Ime Udoka, rejected Harden in not so many words after his appointment, saying Harden wouldn't work well with his young team. Out of leverage and deals in the offseason, James Harden banked on Daryl Morey, his friend of over 10 years, coming through with a max deal. But it never materialized. After weeks of waiting, no word came from Morey. Morey didn't even pick up James's calls, and that set him off. According to ESPN, James felt like Morey ghosted him. He felt betrayed. Harden was so upset that he didn't even wait to hear the 76ers offer. When free agency opened up on July 1st, Harden went with his $36 million player option and demanded a trade. This was when Morey finally reached out with an explanation. The 76ers were coming out of paying the largest fine of all time for tampering in the free agency, and they wanted to do things by the book this time and wait the required period. But James called bullshit. He pointed out that Morey could have sent a message if he wanted to and insisted on the transfer. That was when communication broke down between them and things started to heat up. Following Harden's request, Daryl Morey got on the phone with the Knicks and the Clippers for a transfer offer, but none of the offers matched Morey's asking price. Both teams were interested in Harden, but not so interested that they'd trade a player and risk their shot at the championship. At 34 years old with waning athleticism, James is not as hot or popular as he used to be. He averaged 21 points per game with a league high of 10.7 assists and 6.1 rebounds per game for the Sixers this past season. It is a far cry from his peak, but he's still remarkable. Whatever team ends up with him would be glad to have a shooter like James on their team. He's not one of a kind. His infamous attitude didn't help his case either. He could have played like Michael Jordan, but with his history of quitting on teams, he was a wild card that nobody wanted to make an expensive bet on, and the offers that came in reflected that. When Morey was not pleased with the offers, he ended negotiations and decided to bring Harden back for the Philadelphia 76ers, a decision that made Harden so angry that he dropped the video that aired out their beef and threw shade on Morey.
I'll never be a part of an organization that he's a part of. Let me say it again. Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of.
In an Adidas media event in China, James Harden called Daryl Morey, his long-term friend and the general manager of the Philadelphia 76ers, a liar. "I will never be a part of an organization that he's part of," he said. The clip represented the first open salvo of their controversy, and it was following the clip that James revealed all of the discussion that had gone on behind the scenes, all of which, if they were corroborated, would be against NBA rules. Furthermore, Harden unofficially declared through the video that he would not be playing for the 76ers. at least not willingly. His statement had several implications for his career and his team going forward. For one, his actions have put him in the direct crosshairs for disciplinary action. They have to discourage players from doing the same thing he's trying. For his statement, Harden was fined $100,000, which arguably is just a slap on the wrist. A far more effective punishment was the potential fines that Harden might have to pay if he didn't show up for matches and practices. While half of his salary has already been paid, that does not exclude him from future fines. For every season or exhibition match he misses, he forfeits $389,000. Each practice session will cost him a fine of $2,500 and reach a maximum penalty of $50,000. The third and most appropriate punishment was an old rule that covered withholding services. It basically said that any player who withheld their playing services for more than 30 days after the start of the season covered by their contract is not entitled to negotiate or sign a contract with any professional basketball team until the team they played for expressly agreed otherwise. In layman's terms, Harden is stuck with the 76ers, unless he plays like he's supposed to. Otherwise, he will not only be hurting his chances at a better contract come next season, but he'll also be letting the 76ers down. MVP Joel Embiid has hopes that the team is championship material, but the difference on the court could come down to Harden.
I mean, I think he said what he meant, and I think that was well reported on. And obviously, attacks. I haven't responded to that because I think it falls flat on its face.
Daryl Morey sat down to address the James Harden situation on Media Day. He said what he meant, Daryl Morey said, and I haven't responded to that because it falls flat on its face. Ouch. Daryl never directly addressed James's claim, but it's not too difficult to read between the lines. The deflection was handled with the skill of a GM who's been at this as long as Daryl has. Still, it is a bit surreal watching their friendship fall apart. Daryl saw to James every request for nearly 10 years at the Houston Rockets. At some point, Daryl had so much faith in Harden that he'd said he was a better scorer than Michael Jordan. How times have changed. After months of controversies and jabs at Morey, Harden missed Media Day at the team's facility in Camden, New Jersey, only to show up for the last 3 days of practice at Colorado State University. Training ended on Friday, October 7th, and it is a good sign as any that Harden is returning to the fold and preparing for the season ahead with the rest of his team. When coach Nick Nurse was questioned whether Harden would play Sunday in Boston, he said, "I think that we still got several people that are trying to kind of ramp up to get to Sunday. We'll see how everybody comes out after that and see where we are." Harden hasn't spoken to reporters since he's returned to practice, so it's anybody's guess what his state of mind is. But there's this nervous feeling that the situation's far from over. Looking at his track record, James Harden doesn't seem like the type of guy to let this go. A few people speculate that we might get a repeat of Brooklyn, where he deliberately throws matches just to beat his Daryl asking price low enough to get the transfer he wants. Or he might decide to throw on the infamous fat suit again.
Let me just say this. I love those uniforms, by the way. I just want to talk about some aesthetics. James Harden definitely had a pregame meal, averaging 17 points per game over the last 4.
Either way, it could really hurt the 76ers season if James decides to take his feud to the next level. Although it might not come to that, seeing as he started the feud to get a better contract in the first place. With most of the fans and NBA against him right now, Harden might not risk the reputation hit and torch his career. We'll update you as new information emerges. If you love this style of content, drop a like and sub, and comment down below. Who do you think is in the wrong, Harden or Morey?